Hi, and welcome to this week's edition, where we're going to discuss the Ger Tzedek Non-Jew. The question we are essentially asking ourselves is, who is the Ger Tzedek Non-Jew? Okay, with that said, I have extensive notes, so for those watching in the camera, my eye contact might not be optimal, but for the recording issue, no difference. We do have a limited number of sources that we're going to work with. Right now in my brain, it feels like it's an infinite blast of light. The job is going to be to crunch this down into a digestible, simple discourse that anybody can walk away feeling confident and comfortable who and what is a Ger Tzedek Non-Jew. Capiche?
Capiche.
Let's start from where I started, okay? Where you started today, too. We were Muscavin, you and I, today. When I sat down on Shabbos to learn this out, I thought to myself, where is the best place to start to accumulate all of the Chomer, the Torah sources of Ger Tzedek Non-Jew? I didn't know, which was what makes the story great. Is when I figured out where to go. It's where you went. It's when it becomes an obvious story. Which bracha is it? What number bracha is that?
13.
The 13th bracha of the Shmona Esrei. Ger Tzedek. It was an obvious, logical place to start. I just didn't think of it until I thought of it. And what I liked about it is when I first came onto this, I saw in the name of the Maharal of Prague, who says that this is a non-Jew, Ger Tzedek Non-Jew. He doesn't say it as literal and as halachic as I'd like, because you have to know the background of what the Maharal is talking about to know that, as is with most Ger sources. But he compares it to Vayikra. Now, here's one of our sources. Mark this. Get this in your brain. Vayikra, I think it's 1933. All right, this is Don't Taunt the Ger. And it comes right after the verse in Vayikra to rise and give respect to a Zaken. Zaken is an elder in Torah. He has acquired chachma, wisdom. He is a tzaddik. He is a modern day definition of a great rabbi. He is a tzaddik. He's Zaken, Talmud Chacham. And in Megillah 17b, another one of our sources that describes the Shmona Esrei prayers, it mentions the tzaddik, the tzaddikim, the zaken. And the Ger Tzedek is the language. Which, if you don't know the sugya, you're going to think it's a convert. Ger Tzedek there is in relationship to this zaken tzaddik person. Now, once you start there, and this is the best place to start, the Maharal goes there and says, all these things about a ger is like a seichel in this world, and the Torah intellect in this world is mislavish and clothed in a ger. But let's pretend that I don't know what any of that means. So we'll start with the Shmona Esrei and ask the question from there. What is a Ger Tzedek Non-Jew? And let's assume that the one in the Shmona Esrei is a non-Jew. Now, once we start there, is where the quest begins. Okay? The question you're going to have to ask yourself ultimately is, from a logical point of view, let's pretend also we can know what ger means. What is tzedek, right? Isn't that the question? We think it's a convert. We've heard it might be also a non-Jew. But ultimately, in our search and wisdom, we have to conclude what is tzedek as a defining element of Ger. Gere obviously is ger in plural. Now I have 24 notes here. I want to try to put this together in a logical flow that everybody can follow along. Let's start with one big hub called Don't Taunt the Ger. That hub, that's a world. How many times in the Torah does it say, don't taunt the ger, don't mess with the ger? You mentioned this many times in your letters.
46.
46 times. That sugya in the Talmud, we are going to call that for this class, Bava Metzia 59. And ironically enough, there it does not mention Ger Toshav or Ger Tzedek. And our Shmona Esrei, as mentioned in Megillah 17b, sends us to the low tuno verses. Don't taunt him. And this is a little world of Ger. Huh? Tuno. There's many worlds of Ger. It's also the world of the Ger. On sale now, 28. Just joking. But there's many worlds of Ger. There's the Ger Toshav world, Ger Toshav Yova world, Don't Taunt Him world, God Loves Him world, the Shabbos world, Yevamos world. Right? There's all kinds of little pockets of worlds throughout the Torah of Ger. And usually what I realized on Shabbos today is I go in and I conquer these little worlds. And what you do is you secure the wisdom of each world. So when I was doing Ger of the prophets, Isaiah 56, that's a little world. You nail down the different concepts, you got it. It's clean, it's clear. What I wanted to know, is a Ger Toshav a Noahide? That was also, watch the cord, that was also a little world. So when I got to opening up the channels today, it was very quickly revealed that Ger Tzedek world is Don't Taunt the Ger world. And this started years ago in my research. And it was obvious to me then, but I didn't have the vessels available in my brain as I do now. Because the Don't Taunt the Ger world, I was trying to explain, 5 years ago, that this can be a non-Jew and it can be a Jew. And nothing has changed. That is still the definition. The only difference is now I can explain that world in its entirety in the language itself and as it applies to the greater Ger world. And each time we go through these little challenges to secure, is there a Ger today? Is Ger translation for Noahide in Hebrew? Is there a Ger Tzedek Non-Jew? What is the difference between the philosophical Ger Toshav and the political Ger Toshav? All these things. The more you isolate these little exact little worlds, the more clear it becomes. The Malbim commentary to the Sifri is also very similar. As he gets down the grammar worlds down, he'll say that, Ha-ger is different from Ger, is different from the-ger. All these little semantics are worlds. Now remember, we're starting in the Don't Taunt world. Bava Metzia 59. He's going to be called Ben Gerim. Somebody coming from Gerim. Doesn't call him a Ger. Doesn't call him a Ger Toshav or a Ger Tzedek. Now, usually when people are going to learn something like this, they're going to say, wow, what is a Ben Gerim? Remember, Rabbi Akiva came from Ben Gerim. And usually the mind wants to go, is it a this or a that? Is it a non-Jew or a Jew? What we have secured today is in this don't taunt the Ger world, the reason why it's not clear to you, like we used to say, Bigfoot is just blurry. It's not the photographer's fault. This is one of those cases, and I'm going to amend my old, Bigfoot story a little bit and say it's not blurry here. It's not a reference to a Jew or non-Jew. It's a reference to a person. And the person is told Sur Mirah. You heard that before? Sur Mirah. Turn from evil. Rashi in Masechta Horayos says that this type of person, Ger, again, I don't know if it's Jew or non-Jew, and now I'm saying it doesn't matter. Hold on one second. We'll get to why it doesn't matter. But Rashi is saying that in his heart, he has a sar over his Yetzer Hara, i.e. anything other than Hashem. Because the Talmud is asking why dogs can recognize their maker or master and cats can't. And the mashal is like that. Is that somebody who has God in his heart has defeated his Yetzer to a certain extent. Someone who has not defeated his Yetzer to a certain extent doesn't recognize his maker. And the idea is that some people have a stronger Yetzer Hara. That for them, they want to always go back to wicked ways. Now, remember, we're not saying that the Ger, this Sur Mirah, turned from evil person, doesn't know Hashem. Right? The cat in your house knows that you're his master, correct? The dog licks you and is glad you're home. The cat it knows you're here but doesn't care. So too here. The tzaddik, licks God and says, "Hey, you're great to be with me." The what the Talmud calls the Ger is someone who knows God but has chosen to not greet his master. We can imply from that, infer from that, he does know that he has a master. To which the Vilna Gaon, in the definition of the word Sion in the Tanakh that we saw in the Beis Medrash, all the nations know God. Whether they choose to acknowledge and recognize God is a different story. Because there's an evil in the heart that says to not recognize. We all know your cat at home is evil, but we like it anyways. So here, the Ger is not necessarily a Jew or a convert. It really, as Rabbi Nachman says all through the Likutei Moharan, he is a Baal Tshuva. Because, remember, we are here to tell everybody, do not taunt him. Yesterday you were an idolater, and today you want to learn Torah. Yesterday you were treif, you're eating treif, and today you want that same mouth to speak holiness. Obviously that applies to a non-Jew who converted. But the Talmud there does not mention Ger Tzedek. So it can be an Akum who became Ger, a Gershon is Gayer, who became a convert. It can be a Jew who is halachically a Baal Tshuva, was halachically Nachri, as a Nachri apostate, and now he wants to do Tshuva. You cannot taunt him. So when the Talmud there says, don't taunt Ben Gerim, or in the Gemara, as opposed to the Mishnah, it says Ger, it's Ger Stam, just Ger. And in the relative verses, Rashi will define you, Ger, as the blemish in you, don't judge in them, someone who left his country to come dwell with you. That is the world of don't taunt the Ger. It exists in Vayikra 19:33. It exists in Shemos 22:20. There are other places as well, but these are the two big ones I'm going to bring down. Now, what's interesting about him is that we have another verse in relationship to this. Don't taunt the ger. It says you should love the ger like yourself, not love your neighbor like yourself. Love the ger like yourself, because you were you know his nefesh. You were a ger in Egypt. Now, in the exegesis of these verses in Talmudic passages, when it goes ger non-Jew, is when there's a reason to mayate the pasuk, to knock him off his pedestal. Because the verse here is going to say, Ke'ezrach ger, like the native among you as is the ger. I would say that when it says ger, I'm thinking convert. A convert is a Jew. Hey, he's just like me. And the dictum is ger ze Ger Tzedek Ger Nevelas. When it's a question in the Talmud, there's this little idiom. Ger Tzedek, Ger Nevelas. This one is Ger Tzedek, this one each treif. The first thing you have to listen to when I say that is ger. And you're supposed to say, oh yeah, when the verse just says ger and nothing else. That's Ger Tzedek. I don't know if it's a Jew or non-Jew. We're not going there. It's Ger Tzedek. When it's Toshav, that's what it says. Toshav ze ger ochu nevelas. This ger is the one that eats nevelas. And they learn this little thing when it says ger v'toshav. Just like Abraham said it also in Vayikra 25:35. Ger v'toshav. Ger ze ger tzedek. Toshav ze ger ochu nevelas. But the Metzia there says, we disagree with you. Sifri, Rashi, we disagree. This has to do with charging interest to the ger. This is Bava Metzia 71. And they suggest it's a Ger Tzedek. They say, no. No. Ger Toshav. And we're not talking Ger Toshav Jubilee. We're talking Ger Toshav eats nevelas. Because that's what you call a Noahide. Ger Toshav eats nevelas. Right? It's the first opinion of Avodah Zarah 64b. You can even say it's the second opinion of Avodah Zarah 64b. Some can even say it's the third opinion of Avodah Zarah 64b. Either way, Ezehu Ger Toshav. Rejects idolatry, keeps 7 laws, does all the mitzvahs except for eats nevelas. Ger Toshav. To which the Sifri in the same passage wants to say that the ger is the Ger Tzedek and the Ger Toshav is the Ger Toshav eats nevelas, and Rashi agrees with that. Now, when it says Ger Tzedek, the only question again, is it the non-Jew or Jew? I'll let the cat out of the bag, it's the non-Jewish Ger Tzedek. Otherwise, you wouldn't have asked the question. You wouldn't have lumped them together with ger eats treif. So there you have, with Rashi, the little idiom, this ger, that ger, don't taunt the ger. The Bo Tshuva is this type of ger that you don't taunt. That's called ger stam. Just the word ger. And that's the one in relationship to the rabbi, the chacham, the tzaddik, the one of the Shemona Esrei. And the Sifri also says this Ger Stam is a great guy. He's really great. King David was one of those, even though he was a Jew. Hey, you know, Abraham, he was one of those. Ger V'toshav Anochi. Hey, Moses, he was great too. And it says because God loves the Ger. This has nothing to do with Jews and non-Jews. There's a thing in the world called a Ger, who yesterday he was an Akum and today he is holy. Right? Once upon a time, Abraham was doing things that weren't so kosher. And Moses, David, saw himself as this Ger, Bo Tshuva. God loves them. And ultimately, God rewards them. Isaiah 56, 3 and 6. That the Ben HaNecher will keep my Shabbat and my covenant. And this Ben HaNecher, he has no offspring. He's like a eunuch. In the verse itself, Isaiah chapter 56. He's just not interested in passing ger on to anybody. Much like the Torah of Shem and Aver before Abraham. Whereas when there was Abraham, there was an inyan of passing it to your children. And that has its own little thing. Is it a ger itchem or ger betochechem? As it says in one of our verses, the Malbim explains this, where it says ger itchem. I think this is in our friend, the flawed ger of love the ger like yourself. When there dwells with you a ger. He's new. He's a ger only because now he's gering. If it was ger betochechem, meaning inside you, he's been here 20 years. He may be a convert by now. He might not be. He might just be around a long time. Ger itchem is either a brand new convert or a brand new ger. The bottom line is when it says that we compare ourselves to him to love him, we were gerim in Egypt. I find this ironic because the Rambam was also a ger in Egypt. Right? Because Egypt was under the Sharia law at the time of the Rambam. Rambam was considered in Sharia law a dhimmi. The Islamic view of protecting the people of the book. They had to pay a tax, the Jews did, and they were called dhimmi. It's the Islamic ger toshav. Because the verse is saying, you Jews were gerim in Egypt. Meaning, whenever you leave Judaism to go to some weird foreign place, you're a ger there. And you better hope that country recognizes God, much like King David talks about what do you call it again? Videographer, the Umim, Goyim, Umim, and Amim. One of those has a recognition of God. To be a light to nations is to hopefully make all the nations in the world recognize God so that the whole world's ger toshav, so the Jew doesn't have to leave Israel and feel afraid. Conversely, when you, the ger, come into the proximity of a Jew, we are to love you like ourselves. If I were by you in Canada, right, I would hope that you would love me. Now that you're by me, I love you. So if I am a ger to God on his land, I am called a ger, much like King David calls himself a ger. God loves gerim. Jews on their land are called gerim to God. That which is a blemish in you, do not say it bad to them. I still retain gerness to my soul, the Jew. That aspect of me, I am to love you, the ger. Bo Tshuva, convert, non-Jew, whatever it is. Because there's a reason to mayet in the pasuk. There's a reason to say this is not the category of Jew. contextually. In the verse, you'll be made aware. Sometimes there's no reason to mayet, to lessen. Sometimes you lessen it a lot. Sometimes you don't lessen it a lot. There really are many shades of ger. And that's what Ger Tzedek ultimately is coming to do. He is a term used when we need to fill in the gap between Ger Toshav and Jew. The convert's a Jew. And sometimes there's another step that we need to identify before we go to Ger Toshav. And we're going to explain that. But right now, we should have explained, don't taunt the Ger, how he's going to come to keep the Ger Shabbat, Isaiah 56, Christus 9a, Ger Stam, that whole world. We got that world now? Yeah? Now there's another world. And we're going to call that world Bava Metzia 111b. Don't withhold wages from your worker. And that verse is going off of Dvarim 24:14 and Vayikra 19:13. Don't withhold wages from your re'echa, your friend. Just the same word as ve'afta l'recha kamocha. Which everyone says is a Jew, everyone says is a convert. The question is, when we say love the ger, and the ger is included in ve'afta l'recha kamocha, does that include the ger toshav? Because the Rambam says Ger Tzedek. Everybody says Ger Tzedek is included there. Now, is that only the convert or is it the non-Jew? And if it's the non-Jew, does it also reboy the Ger Toshav? Don't withhold wages from your re'echa. Yerushalmi Talmud of Bava Metzia, chapter 9, halacha 11, quoting our verse in Devarim 24:14. Migercha is the verse. From your ger. Our Bavli Bava Metzia 111b says from your brother and not Akum. Migercha, this is Ger Tzedek. Also the Rishalmi, Ger Tzedek. Asher Ba'aretz, that's in your land, that has something to do with the animals and the vessels of your worker. Bisharecha, in your gate. Bavli, 111b, Ger Toshav, Ocho Nevelas. I.e. nothing having to do with Yovel. Bava Metzia Rishalmi, we don't include the Ger Toshav here. He is not Re'echa. He's not your friend. I don't have to love him. Now the Rishalmi is going to say that because it's the Rishalmi. And he doesn't want your Canaanite friend, idolater, who you only do commerce with him, which is why he's a Ger Toshav. He is not your friend when he's trying to blow himself up and kill you. He's only a Ger Toshav. He's a Ger Toshav Akum because he is literally Toshav as he lives next door. Rabbi Hirsch is interesting on this in the Bavli. That is pro-Ger Toshav because that Ger Toshav is synonymous with Noahide. It's the literal translation. Rabbi Hirsch on our verse says, how great is the Torah that the Ger Toshav who's only in your gate also has, with the precaution taken upon him, you have to give him wages on time. Now, what the Malbim is drawn in the other commentaries is, imagine Israel, okay? The general Israel has gates around the land. There are gerim in those gates. That's Ger Toshav, rejecting idolatry, eating of nevelas, and maybe keeping the 7 laws. And we're not going to consider that the Akum guy. That's a Ger Toshav, and we do not need Yovel for him. Now, he is not allowed to come into our cities. One can say because there's no Yovel. We are not absorbing these good Noahide Gerim in the land of Israel until Yovel. Why would you do it with Yovel? You got Bob. Bob lives in the gates, and he's okay in the gates. He doesn't want to come and disrupt Jewish life. But then there's Bob's cousin, Jim. And Jim wants to live right in the heart of the Holy Land. And we say, Jim, it's the Jubilee year, when it is the Jubilee, and we're okay with you living with us. Right? Because you know that you can't do idolatry here, you keep the 7 laws, and you are good in the land, we're good with you, you're good with us, and you don't have to stay in the gates. He says, that's good, because I love Jewish people, I like Jewish life, but hey, you know what? I eat pork. I do what I do. Okay, Jim does what he does. But he's not disrupting our life, and we're not going to disrupt his. With no Jubilee, there's no problem of dwelling within Israel. Because there's no Jews living here with Kedusha until the time of Jubilee. So that's not called absorbing into our Jewish lifestyle. Now, if he is going to live with Jews anywhere in the world, this person, that's already Ger Tzedek Non-Jew. Because the Ger Toshav, he is not interested in coming into the innards of the community. But the Ger Toshav, non-Jew, who wants to come in closer, he wants to go to synagogue, to go to the class. He wants to be involved. He's Ger Tzedek non-Jew. And they're going to learn it from Gercha Asher B'Shorecha. Your Ger, that of your gate. Your gate alone is Bob and the gates. When we say your Ger, Gercha, it's you. Your Ger, of your gate, i.e. your house. You bring him over to your house. Not every Ger Toshav wants to be brought home. They just don't. And they don't have to. But if they want to come by, they have to know the rules. Don't use my microwave Saturday morning. For that, the 10 Commandments says, Ger Tzedek keeps the Shabbat Krisis 9a. Because it's the non-Jewish Ger. If it's simply your worker, non-Jew, Ger Toshav, that comes from Mishpatim, I forget the exact verse, chapter 23, I think 21-ish, pardon me if it's wrong. It's the one that says, Vayi Nafash, you'll rest your maidservant, your donkey, blah, blah, blah. Veha-ger. And everyone contrasts and compares those two Shabbases. And they say the Ger Toshav proper is the Mishpatim, Ger Tzedek non-Jew is the 10 Commandments. Now, why do we call him Ger Tzedek? This is the same thing as our 24:14, don't withhold wages from our friend, right? Megercha, it's the same world. It's called Gercha, your Ger of your gate. And when you look in the commentaries, they all ask the question, why on earth do we have to call Ger Tzedek here when even a Ger Toshav, outside of the Yerushalmi, but in the Babylonian 111b in the Bava Metzia, if we accept Ger Toshav, not we accept Jubilee, Ger Toshav, you cannot withhold wages from him. Ger Toshav, you can't have him doing Shabbos work for you. Ger Toshav, he can guard your wine. It's the Ger Toshav of today. Simply, he is a Noahide, eats nevelas. Then we say, the more so, a Ger Tzedek non-Jew. Why do you need to tell me Ger Tzedek? To which the Shita Mekubetzes, quoting Tosfos Arash and Tosfos Rabbeinu Peretz, It is pshita that a convert is Bechlal Yisrael Mamish. Everybody knows Ger Tzedek means convert. That's all there is, folks. Ger Tzedek is convert. So why are you mentioning it when we said from your brother, Mechicha, that's Ger Tzedek? What's the problem? And we already know there's a Ger Toshav, so why are you telling me a superfluous Ger Tzedek? The answer is, in the Pshat, you're right. Ger Tzedek is always convert. Pshat is not what we always do. There's Pshat, and there's Lefi Pshuto. There's Pshat, and there's Drasha. And the commentaries are all saying, in the realm of Lefi Pshuto, where we draw from all the words of Torah, rabbinic reality, and Drasha, it's a smachta ba'omehu. Meaning it's a nice little touch of gray to say Ger Tzedek in Bava Metzia 111b, top 2 Taisvus there, to which the Shita Mekabetzis gives the commentary on. And the commentaries say, but a Ger Tzedek convert is totally Jewish, or you can say a Ger Tzedek non-Jew is completely not Jewish. So why are you saying Ger Tzedek here? And the answer is, again, Ger B'Sharecha is one concept. Like give the nevela to the ger of your gate. Ger V'Toshav, that's already two concepts. You can make that drasha there, no problem. That's not pshat. And Bava Metzia says the Rashi member, that's not pshat. One concept here, Ger Toshav. Rashi and Sifri say, no, sorry, I disagree, two concepts. But here, it looks like, come on, man, this is only one concept. So since it's only one concept, it's Ger Toshav. But for the sake of a basic drasha, we say Ger Toshav, Ger Tzedek non-Jew. And it cannot be the convert. Which is why they asked, and why bring it at all? We already know Ger Toshav. It's like a touch of gray. There's a guy in the world who is not Jewish, not convert Jewish, not a goy, and not Ger Toshav, eats the veil of 7 laws of Noah. He's something else. He's in your cities, not only in the outside. And for that, we call him Ger Tzedek. Capish? So we learned that's called a drasha. There's the Ger Tzedek convert always pshat. And there's Ger Tzedek non-Jew drasha. Sometimes the Torah goes in pshat. Sometimes it goes in drasha. We mentioned the Ger Tzedek according to the Zaken. Don't taunt him. Ger Stam. So now we've covered Shabbos, paying wages, your friend. Right now we learned the Ger Toshav is your friend, according to Bava Metzia in the Bavli. And by the way, in Devarim 24:17, what's the name of the guy that did the article in the J-Post? Riskin? They wanted to say that the Russian Jews, the quasi whatever, we should just convert them because of a pasuk 24:17 Dvarim, Ger Yitom. Don't pervert judgment of the ger and the orphan and the widow. The Baal Torah says, since it doesn't say Ger Ve'yitom, ger and orphan, it's ger orphan. It can also be just ger and an orphan. But we're learning that a gersh in his gayer is like a newly born person. He doesn't have parents. And each one of these is a lashing. If you pervert one of 3 ways. So you can occur 3 lashings here. And again, we learn the same set of system. Ger convert, ger non-Jew. Because the convert is what the Baal Torah learns, Gershin is Gair. A Ger who becomes more Ger. What do you call a convert? Ger Tzedek in the Pshat. What do you call a non-Jewish Ger Tzedek? That's called Ger Tzedek in the Drasha. Another way to define it, notice this, Ger Tzedek Gamor, or Ger Gamor, meaning he's Ger Tzedek, but Gamor. The non-Jewish Ger Tzedek is not called Gamor, just Ger Tzedek. He didn't finish his Gior. So Gershin is Gair. He furthered his Ger. That is already called Gamor. And some people are on the path of being Ger Gamor. Again, that's like the offspring of Abraham as opposed to Shem and Aver. Some people are not interested in finishing the Gior. They can just be a Ger Tzedek, and that's it. Some people want to be Gamor. They'll be absorbed after 3 generations. So Ger and the Ger Yitom. Ger Yitom, the Ger orphan, you can say because he's now a convert, or you can say he's a Ger Tzedek non-Jew, and he left his Akum family behind. The difference is, do you get 1 lash, 2 lashes, 3 lashes? So yet another definition of Ger Tzedek is when you are viewing the Torah as per how many lashes you get for taunting them or ruining them, someone who has a price tag of more lashes is a Ger Tzedek. And that's what the Rambam brings in Sanhedrin 20:12. That in this Ger Yitom you can get to 3 lashes. And when we explain, don't withhold wages from the Ger, back from 24:14, just a couple verses before, 5 lashes you can get. And that's when you say, Migercha is Ger Tzedek. If it's Ger Toshav, he does not, if you withhold wages from him, it's not worth all 5 lashes. So again, there are some people who, because of their Jewish associations, if you abuse them, you will be punished more. The Ger Toshav doesn't show up on Jewish radar enough to become abused. Therefore, you do not get lashes for abusing him the same way as a Ger Tzedek non-Jew. The convert here is called a Jew. Therefore, if you abuse him, it's like abusing a Jew. And the reason is because the Ger Toshav doesn't come into your precincts. The Ger Tzedek non-Jew does. If I never entered your house, it would be hard for me to steal from you. Right? But I could steal your shoes while you're in my house. God forbid. Midrash Gadol has a very nice pshat on the 10 Commandments. James Gosnell, this is for you. Midrash Gadol 2010, the Ger of the 10 Commandments is a Ger Tzedek non-Jew. As we said, it's in the private precincts of a Jew. It's a specific your Ger, your gates. They give a little Agadata and they say, hey, isn't Bris Milah just as important as Shabbos? Why isn't it mentioned in the 10 Commandments? And they say, just like from Shabbos is Ger Tzedek, also the Bris Milah, which is why we learn the Rambam Hilchos Ger Tzedek in Bris Milah, that a Ger who gets Ger Tzedek who gets Bris Milah without dunking in the mikveh, which means he's not Jewish, he has Bris Ka Yisrael. It's a Brit Ki Yisrael. I've also seen it called Din Yisrael, i.e. takes on his 7 laws as Israel does at Sinai. Which means that for him to not keep Shabbos would be like Avodah Zorah. So the Ger keep Shabbos like a ger, not like a Jew, but like a ger, in order to strengthen the fact that he does not do avodah zorah. So he takes on his 7 laws, Kedin Yisrael B'Sinai. Rav Hutner talks about this, Pachad Yitzchak. I believe the Miri says the same thing. I saw it recently. If it's not the Miri, it's someone else, but I think it's the Miri. He takes on Kedin Yisrael. That's the Lashon. Kedin Yisrael. Or Kemitzvahs Yisrael. His 7 laws. Any mitzvah he takes on beyond that, he does it like Sinai. That's the difference between him and, let's say, a regular Noahide. If he wants to do it bris ki Yisrael, or enter the bris of Avraham ki Yisrael, B'Sinai. The Ben HaNecher is the difference because he is not circumcised. Doesn't want to circumcise. Some Ger Tzedek Non-Jew want to circumcise. Remember, the difference is what kind of ger are you, and that's who we're talking to. So if it's the Shabbos ger, is that the kind of ger you are? Is it the don't taunt the ger? Is that the kind of ger you are? Is it don't withhold wages? Is that the kind of you are? Is it the ger of your gate outside in the land? Is that the kind of ger you are? Are you in the Jewish cities? Is that the kind of ger you are? Are you inside the Jewish cities time of Yovel? Is that the kind of ger you are? Are you an Akum, a ger Toshav, and we simply do business with our neighbors? Is that the kind of ger you are? Ger is about who you are, where you are. And it's interesting, the Talmud says the revelation of the Shekhinah only happens B'Klal Yisrael Ki Hilchaso. And only in Klal Yisrael do you get a Giloi Shekhinah. Meaning when things go right. If I'm a Kohen and I don't act like one, or believe I'm one, no revelation of God. If you're a Levi and you don't act or believe you're a Levi, you think you're a regular Jew, you will not have Gilui Shechina. If you're an Israelite and you marry somebody not kosher, you will not have Gilui Shechina. A Kohen that marries someone illegal, no Gilui Shechina. Someone who converts insincerely, no Gilui Shechina. A ger that thinks he's Akum, no Gilui Shechina. A ger who understands where he's at in relationship to all 4 houses, even though he's not B'Klal Yisrael, he will have Gilui Shechina. When all is right in the universe, according to you, you get Gilui Shechina. Tikkun Olam, God revealed on earth, very simple formula, isn't it? Cohen, Levi, Israel, Ger. Very simple formula. That's how you get Gilui Shechina. Anything outside of that, you will not have it. If you convert insincerely, marry wrong, you don't acknowledge you're a ger, you don't acknowledge you're a Kohen. If I'm a Baal Tshuva and I don't acknowledge that I'm a ger, I won't have Gilui Shechina. You have to acknowledge the truth. The Or Chaim has a great shot on ger. He says that nefashos come besod ibor. The different nefesh, it's called in the Tehillim and Mishlei, nefesh tzadik, or tzadik nefesh, comes into you in order to help people do mitzvot. Some come mysteriously, and some come not mysteriously. That corresponds to ger v'toshav. 2 ways the souls can come in. When you do tshuva, you're cautioned, don't darken the light of your spirit or their spirit. So Gerim come around Jews. Light to nations exists. Wisdom, Tzidkis, Zakin, Shmona Esrei. Because when we are doing tshuva, let's say in the revealed sense, like God's right arm, God's left arm also deals with souls. Those are the Gerim. So we're told, don't darken the light. Don't taunt the ger. Right? Don't charge interest to the ger. The Jew is one enlightened. He's in the revealed sense. The ger is here to help the Jew do mitzvot, and the ger gets merit at the same time. So it's like if Michael Jordan is scoring baskets, it is improper to say it's all about him and nobody helped him get there. You know, we're not saying that one is better than the other. Let's take NASCAR. Jimmy Johnson wins the cup. Everyone that knows NASCAR knows the entire team helped him get it. It is literally a team. Marketing says Michael Jordan was not in a team, but anyone that knows better knows he is in a team. So it's always a team effort. And the holy team, the Jewish team, recognizes Jew and ger. It's a total. One is positive, one is negative. I'm talking in sort of a charge and revelation. The Jews are revealed to do these things. The Gerim are the ones that are charging it, making the circuit. So the responsibility goes on both. But when the Jew is going to, let's say, do tshuva, the Torah reminds him, do not taunt the ger, don't look down on the ger. Because the nefesh hager, the Rizal and the Zohar talk about nefesh hager, are what makes it possible. And it might come mysteriously, because God deals with the souls. You don't have the right to say you know what's going on. And with that, we may be done. Let me see here. We mentioned that there's the Ger Tzedek Non according to the drasha, i.e. not pshat, right? Lefi pshuto type. The Ger Stam, that is told to go to the wisdom. He is beloved before God, and he is rewarded. The God says he'll keep my Shabbat, even if he's B'nai HaNecher. And they're the Ger Tzedek that are shaykh to more lavin than the Ger Toshav proper. We've had the Ger Toshav who lives in Israel for the Yovel. Ger Toshav. Toshav literally means dwelling. So you have a dwelling ger. You have a Ger Toshav where he's allowed to live amongst us only because of the Yovel. We have Toshav as our neighbors, the dwelling of the neighbors. And you have the ger, it's not Toshav or Tzedek, which is Ger Stam. And he is the one that has a blemish. You have the same blemish, don't taunt him. And with that, I think we've done it all. Let's check my notes. Videographer, would you say you understand Ger Tzedek Non-Jew now?
Clearer.
Are there any questions you have about the Ger Tzedek Non-Jew?
I have, but I can't mention names.
Then don't mention names. But you have a question. We mentioned the Ger Tzedek of Tefillah, Shmon Esrei. That is the Ger Stam, the one that God loves. Maybe he's the ones that come to give us this soul, nefesh be'ibor, to help us do tshuva, all these things. He is the one that gravitates towards tzidkis, chochma, zakin, rabbi. He is an elevated ger. For that reason, he is called tzedek, because he is going to chochma. Right? He's an advanced Baal Tshuva ger, as opposed to the Baal Tshuva ger who may have literally just yesterday left the church.
Can you have an uncircumcised Ger Tzedek?
100%. That would be the drasha sense of the Ger Stam. That would be the lavin. If you taunt him, you get more lashes than the Ger Toshav. The circumcised Ger Tzedek is the one who simply has bris milah, right? That's one of his qualities that he automatically that goes there, assuming he's rejected avodah zarah and has accepted the 7 laws of Noah. He may then want to circumcise and to take on his 7 laws Kabris Yisrael. The Ben HaNecher, right? Remember, you weren't listening. The Ben HaNecher, Isaiah 56, 3 and 6, is the same as our Drasha Shmon Esrei guy. What is the defining feature of a Ben HaNecher? No bris milah. Any other questions?
What was the status of Yisro?
Yisro was a circumcised ger. The 10 Commandments were given in his name. He brought a shlomim, which the Talmud asks about how the Noahides can bring shlomim. And the answer is, as long as they're messianic, we're not talking about the perverted group, right? If they're looking towards Mashiach, they can bring them. It will happen as prophesied, as it was brought down in the Talmud Yerushalmi Megillah, I think 15a. In the end of days with Mashiach, the Gerim will do Olos in the north. They will go south to the Beis Hamikdash, where they will give Shlomim. Yisro was a circumcised Ger Tzedek Non-Jew. Any other questions, videographer? That's a wrap, folks. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you.